Joined by Jeffery Dickinson, Regional Manager for Asia with E+Co. You're basically investing in energy projects and working with entrepreneurs, but how does it work?
We're a clean energy investment company, so we'll invest in technologies and in projects that either have a renewable energy or a cleaner source of energy that somebody is using. Typically the process is that someone will approach us with a project idea or with a concept, and then we'll start to talk to them and see what their financing needs are. And then we'll try to identify where E+Co can fit into that sort of financing needs that they have, be it providing some debt or some equity into a project. Along with that, we also provide enterprise development services, so business support services to these companies to help them to grow. And it could be depending on how sophisticated they are, something from helping them, actually write their business plan, right through to choosing a technology, or just helping them raise additional debt or equity for the project. So quite a range of services that we provide.
So why would somebody come to you rather than going to a VC?
Well, we have quite a long track record. E+Co was set up in 1995 and has made over 200 investments in clean energy projects. So we have a real track record and a real on-the-ground presence around the globe, actually, in 30 countries, over 30 countries, in terms of investing. So we have that experience. That's something that's needed. There's still a lot of developers that see the opportunity in clean energy, but may not have that sort of first-hand experience of doing a biomass project or a biogas project. So that's one of the things that we bring to the mix, as well as the capital that we can put into a project.
What sort of projects do you currently have in Asia?
Right now we're in 7 countries in the region with our head offices, our regional offices in Bangkok and a smaller office in China. We've been focused a lot on 2 main sectors, let's say. One is industrial biogas, looking at anaerobic digestion of a waste stream typically from a food processing factory, but also now from ethanol plants and palm oil plants, things like that. That's a process where we're taking the waste, generating methane, and then selling that methane back to the factory, to the host, if you will, to run their boilers, generate electricity. Some of the projects in some countries, depending on the local rules, are able to sell that excess electricity back to the grid. So that's one large sector that we've been involved in, and had quite a bit of over 10 years of activity in the biogas sector. Another sector we've done a lot of work in is biomass, both the combustion of biomass, or what people typically think of a power plant, burning rice husk or burning wood, producing steam, making electricity, and selling that into the grid. The other sort of more exciting, to me anyways, technology we've been working on and promoting is biomass gasification. The actual sort of partial combustion of biomass and pulling off of the smoke, if you will, and then you can burn those emissions, those gases in an engine or in a thermal application to make energy. We've now have investments in two different companies, one in Cambodia and one in the Philippines, that are basically out there designing, installing, and operating biomass gasifiers. The one in Cambodia, they've done 30 gasifiers at a whole host of different companies, rice mills and brick factories, even a garment factory, as well as some village-level electrification programs. So that's our 2 main focuses. We've also done quite a bit of work with solar PV, for household level solar PV. We have some energy services companies as well that we've invested in, as well as some hydropower companies here in Asia. But worldwide, E+Co really has probably touched on almost every renewable energy technology that's been out there and looked at. And again, to go back to your earlier questions, that's one of the reasons why people come to us, is that track record of experience and exposure. We've seen what works and what doesn't work over and over again. So that's a benefit I think we have.
You're looking for projects in the developing countries rather than dealing with companies that maybe, say, in the US or Europe that are doing business in the emerging markets. Why?
Our mission is to invest in and help develop energy companies in emerging markets. We've purposely chosen that. We don't work in Europe or the United States or Japan and such because of that. And we always work with local companies as well. We're not a large organization, but we do have a very special niche that we fit into, and that one of the components of that is working with local companies. Often if a very large utility wants to come into a new market for them, they don't need our money. They may need our technical help, but they don't necessarily need E+Co's capital because they're so large. But there's a great number of smaller local companies that do need a source of helpful capital, patient capital. and we can provide that.
So in Asia, you're looking at normal sort of emerging markets, Indonesia, the Philippines, China,
yep.
India.
Yep. Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, and Nepal as well. Those are the markets we're active in now.
What are you specifically doing in China?
With the UNEP several years ago, we set up and operated a project called the China Rural Energy Enterprise Development Initiative, CREED it was called. And that was really to go into China and look at what we needed to do to sort of gear up and help expand the energy enterprises. Because that's really what we look at, is developing those businesses to provide the services. So we set up a small office there in Kunming in Yunnan province. And then since then we've been looking at a number of different investments. We've bought into a company that manufactures small water turbines, another company that manufactures biomass cooking stoves, and they're doing quite well. They're expanding. We just expanded our investment in the stove company. We've also invested in biogas developers, industrial biogas developers. We had two. One we just exited from. Another we're looking to develop some more projects with. And then the rest of our portfolio there is with energy services companies that are providing sort of large-scale thermal heating systems for institutions. One company is doing solar water heating for universities and hospitals. The other company is doing geothermal heating systems for large buildings. So that's sort of the mix that we have in China.
What are some of the success stories?
Well, we've a couple. I mean, there's a project in Thailand we did a number of years ago and have exited from, a large biogas project. That was actually a quite exciting project. It was the first one of its kind in the region. It actually ended up being the largest bioreactor of that type. And it worked very well on a technical standpoint. It exceeded our design expectations. It also provided a very clear example of this technology being commercially applied. That now in Thailand, this was at a cassava processing factory. Many of these starch factories either have already built them or are building them now. So it's really, I think that's a project that we were quite happy with how it turned out. And financially, the returns were very good on that. Another project is the biomass gasifier company we own a part of in Cambodia, a company called SME Renewable Energy. They've gone into a market and really pioneered this technology inside Cambodia. They've done in a couple of years 30 installations of a technology that had never been applied in Cambodia. We're getting an Indian manufactured system. Gasification is a known quantity, but it hasn't been applied there. And this company went in, learned the technology, worked with their customers, and really persevered to the point where now they're the market leader there. But they've also really shown a nice example of what biomass gasifiers can do for small and medium scale industry. And again, for E+Co, that for us is a success.
So basically then, some of the projects that you're currently working with wouldn't have seen the light of day without this funding? Probably not. I think
certainly the gasifiers were not getting any traction in Southeast Asia before we became involved. And another aspect of what an important aspect of what we invest in is we're a triple bottom line organization. So we're looking at the social and the environmental and the financial all at the same time and balancing those, making our investment decisions. So a lot of investors are either single or double, environmental and financial, but we really seriously take the social component as well. So we look at that and factor that in. And I think that's an important part of what we do.
You're also offering development support in addition to financing.
That's right. We call it enterprise development services. But we with the SME Renewable Company, we help them to write their business plan. Choosing a technology, because there was a couple of providers of gasifiers, refining that and refining the business plan. And it's a lot of earlier on, quite a bit of work with them on the ground, with the rice mills that they were selling to. Now as the company has grown and the management capacity has gone up, we don't need to, and we're going on to work with others. But that's a critical component of E+Co's sort of process and what we do with companies is that services. It's some cases as important, if not more important, than the capital.
You're taking a slightly different approach in Asia by providing equity rather than loans. Why?
That's correct. Well, we've seen at least in the markets that we're in Asia, that there's quite a bit of debt available. If somebody has something they can offer as a security, then they can go to a bank in a lot of these countries and get themselves a loan for their project. There's also, depending on the country, a lot of government support for lending. In Thailand, as an example, there's quite a bit of of government money that's available for banks to use for lending on energy projects. So we can't compete with that, and nor do we want to in that sense, because that's really part of our mission, is to bring traditional financiers into the sector. So we're happy in a sense when the banks come in and the banks step up for providing the debt. So in Asia we saw there was definitely a need for equity. While there are a lot of private equity funds around, they're all looking for very large and over $1 million type investments, whereas E+Co will invest between, say, $25,000 and $1 million on a project. So we have a very broad range that's much lower. We will accept that it costs us more to service these things. That's usually what keeps the larger private equity funds away from these investments. But we feel this is very important because it stimulates a lot of more activity at a lot closer to the ground level. And as we've seen from the biogas in Thailand that we did, there can be a real replication knock-on effect there that we're not involved in, but we're catalytic and we get it started. We've seen that now as well with the gasifiers in Cambodia. As I said, we were the first ones in there with SME Renewable. Now there's 2 other companies trying to trade in the same market. There's others from outside looking at it. So again, this catalytic effect is something we feel is quite important.
And going forward, are there any particular technologies, areas you'd like to develop?
We're quite keen to keep pushing the gasifiers, biomass gasifiers. As I mentioned, biogas was something we've done, and we're still involved, but really it's matured that market quite nicely. We think right now there's still a few more years of our support and push on the gasifiers to get them more commonly available and more broadly available. As I mentioned, we have a company now in the Philippines that's using gasifiers. We're having very good discussions with some other groups about other markets to take these into, brand new. So that's something I think will take our attention for a few more years. Post that, we're looking at some rather innovative recycling energy use at some municipal solid waste sites, things of that nature. But for the time being, I think gasifiers is our sort of main one technology-wise that we're promoting. But we also, we're still busy. We just closed on a hydro project in Nepal. As I mentioned, we have solar PV companies that we deal with, so we're very interested to look at anything. But we just happened to come upon gasifiers and see this as a very important technology, and have been promoting that.
Jeffery Dickinson of E+Co, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.